Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to this presentation that I'm going to hold, which we call Getting Yourself Hired. The purpose and the agenda for today is like this. We're going to first talk a little bit about background. Why am I here on stage? So that's very brief. And second, we'll go into preparations, how you prepare yourself for landing a job. And then we'll take a very quick look at the Swedish games industry. That segment was actually quite a lot larger, but I shortened it down because I realized that I could go on and on about that. And that's not the real purpose of this. And then we'll look at actually applying for a job. And last but not least, the actual interview stage. A few words about this presentation before I go into depth. It's not going to be in depth, actually. This is going to be a presentation where I give you some very basic hints and suggestions on how to best prepare yourself to give us as recruiters the best way to assess you as a candidate. So, quickly, a little bit about me. My name is Robert Nyberg. I used to be the HR manager at Starbreeze Studios in Uppsala. That was my first games industry job. That was about 6 years ago, August 1st, 2006 to be precise. Now I am the talent acquisition manager at Massive, which is a Ubisoft studio. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Massive later. Totally, I think I've hired about 200 people so far, which is quite a lot. And I do this because I love games. I have been a gamer since 1984, I think. And I like working with creative people. I love the industry and I really like all the creative people in it. Okay, so Massive. Today we are about 240 employees. Which makes us quite a big studio, actually. And we're, as I mentioned, a part of Ubisoft. So we're one of the development studios within Ubisoft, and in total, Ubisoft has over 6,000 employees. We have 2 game teams working on high-profile games in the core segment. We have 2 tech teams. One tech team is working on something called Uplay for PC, and the other tech team is working on technology development for, well, engine development, really. And then we have a cinematic team, and the cinematic team helps the game teams to create phenomenal cinematic and cutscenes that are needed. And as I mentioned, we're based in Malmö. Okay. So preparations. This is actually a very important step, and that's why I start with it. So before you start looking for a job, you should prepare the following. And I'll go into all of these things in more detail after this. But first of all, you should prepare a CV or a resume. You should also look at a sort of an idea for a cover letter. That you will attach when you apply. You should also prepare a portfolio or some work samples that can be easily distributed, and prepare references. And with this, I mean check who can be your references. Prepare them that you're going to apply for jobs, and check if they're okay with you handing out their contact information. So about the CV and the resume. A CV and a resume is one of the essential parts, of course. And the yellow marked things in these presentations are actually things that I surprisingly see people forgetting. Sometimes you open a resume and some of these things are not there, or some thing happens and they just completely forget to show up on time or something like that. So a good CV or resume should always contain the following: full personal data, a name, address, current phone number, both if you have, or all of them if you have several, email information so that we can contact you back, because sometimes the CV gets redistributed, especially in a large group like Ubisoft. We might send it to another studio and they might want to contact you and they don't have the initial contact information that you sent. So always these things. And date of birth, because this can be important for a lot of things. And it's also very relevant when asking a couple of questions about relocation, things like that. But then the actual content of the resume should be a career summary with short descriptions of the responsibilities you've held at that position, your tasks and what your typical responsibilities have been, and of course your title for that position. And educational merits. So which school did you attend? What courses did you attend? Or which program did you attend? And that should be it, really, for a resume. You can add a lot of other things, but as long as you get these things covered, we're good to go. Okay, portfolio. It should always be online. We're living in an age with internet, so PDF portfolios can be nice, but there should be at least an exact replica to find online. Sometimes when you've been in the industry for a while, it's a little bit tricky because you might have things that are under NDA that you can't redistribute. But then you can look at that and find specific solutions via Dropbox or something like that, even though that's not so secure. But when you compile a portfolio, try to make it a focused portfolio. Try not to have it contain a little bit of everything, because if it contains a little bit of everything, it's really difficult to judge where your heart lies. And that's actually one of the more important things. We want to hire people that are ambitious and passionate about what they're doing. So if we can clearly see this is the core interest of this person, then it's easier to see which role they will fit into. So try to keep it focused. And if you are talented or like several things, divide it into segments. Makes perfect sense, of course. Okay? Then you can also look at trying to make it relevant for the studio that you're applying to. So, without giving away any details, or if we can, I can use Starbreeze as an example. If you were to apply as an artist to Starbreeze, it would make sense to have art examples that are typical Starbreeze style. So, Final Fantasy type of art, maybe not what we're looking for. But if you had drawn inspiration from Max Payne, that would have been relevant for us. So try to make a portfolio that is relevant for us and display those things. Okay. Always include high-res versions of the images. They don't need to be 2048 renders, but high-res enough so we don't end up with stamp size images to view, because it's really difficult to assess the art quality of that. And then we'll just return to you and ask for high-res versions of the same images anyway. Okay, and for programmers, sample code and an executable is relevant for us. Let's see, like that. The cover letter. I know some people think it's really awesome to talk about themselves for long times, but it's actually better to keep it brief. Depending on the font size and so, between a half and a full page is usually enough to give a clear idea if this person is someone that would suit into the organization. Also, make sure that you motivate why you're applying for that specific position and why you're interested in us as a company, in us Massive's case, for example. Give some info on who you are, where you're from, general background, and how come you ended up in the games industry. And also, this is another thing that's surprising sometimes. Don't be afraid to talk about your experience as a gamer. Everyone is a gamer, almost everyone in the industry. So we are interested in that because it gives us a frame of reference of what type of games you'd like to play. Often is similar to the type of games that you would like to work on. So please talk about your passion in gaming. Okay. Next up is research. Before you apply, do some research. It doesn't have to be super in-depth, because sometimes I meet candidates and they've seen all the interviews with our managing director and read all the interviews that they could find and played all our games, and that's a little bit overboard. But it doesn't hurt if you read through the web page, understand who we are as an organization, and what we are motivated by. Study previous games. Again, you don't have to play them, but at least watch a bit of frapses from YouTube or whatever, so you have an idea of what type of games we're working on. And if you run into anything during this research, make a note out of it so you can ask questions when or if you come to an interview. Okay? So now that you've done the research and the preparation, you have your CV and resume in place. You have an idea of a rough template for a cover letter. You should get going out into the industry. And this is just a list of all the studios in Sweden. The idea of this is actually to help you. So these are the ones that I could think of within 10 minutes that I know are out there. And the Swedish games industry is getting quite big, actually. All of these are present in the country. And I think at least 50% is actively hiring. I know that we are hiring, of course. We are aiming to grow by another 30 this year, roughly. The presentation will be available to all of you, so you can get it from Ulf or someone. Okay. So it's time to apply. So when applying, you should always go through the proper channels. I know it's nice if you know someone in the studio that is willing to recommend you, and you send them their resume and ask them to present you to the art director or whatever, but which is fine. It's perfectly fine to have references within the studio or similar, but it makes it really difficult to track for us, because we have such a massive load of candidates coming in. So always go through the proper channels, but you can, in your application, you can refer to a person you know and tell them that they have encouraged you to apply. That is a good thing. But it's difficult if it's through various channels like the art director and the lead artist and the programmer, and they all come to me and give me printouts of resumes. It becomes difficult to track. So it's important for that simple reason, actually. Make sure that you attach all the material that I previously mentioned. So look through before you click send. It is fine to send an extra email and say, oh, I forgot to send in the resume or whatever. That's fine. No one's going to disqualify you because of that. Even if you realize it a day later, it's stuff like that happens, so don't get too nervous about it if it happens. Clearly label your application. And with this, I mean label it with the position that you're applying for, because to you it's the application, but if the subject says application, I get about 150 applications a week. So if all of them are labeled application, it becomes difficult to categorize them and sort through them and forward them correctly. So just clearly label it which position you're applying for, and be patient. With the amount of applications that we see, it sometimes takes a little bit of time to process. I know that we have set up so that we have one person just handling incoming email and sorting through them, giving notice that we have received the application. But I'm sure that a lot of the smaller studios, they don't have that capacity. So it's difficult for them to get back within a couple of days and can even take weeks sometimes. But I'll get back to that a little bit later as well. So this is the typical recruitment process at our studio. First of all, we start by gather applicants. This is after we've posted the position online. So we gather applicants, we do first selections. With first selection, we sort of make sure that all of them are relevant and they meet the standard criteria that we're looking for. Then we review the selected candidates together with leads, and we make a short list that we get back to. We call for interviews or ask for tests to be made. By this time, you should have had your first reply, all of you, if you apply. After that, we do the actual interview together with the closest hiring manager. Then we do a second selection, because the first interview session can be about between 6 and 10 candidates usually that we get back to and call for interviews in the first round. Then we do a second selection, which is a short list of about 3 or 4 candidates that we do a second interview with. And this second interview can sometimes be a very lengthy thing. It's not uncommon that we have full day interviews where it's 1 hour with the managers and 1 hour with the art director, and then an afternoon with the team and things like this, and maybe whiteboard tests and everything. But it's a little bit dependent on seniority, of course. Then after that, we sit down and discuss the final candidates, and if we're ready, we move to presenting an offer. And lastly, after that, we get back to all the candidates that have been in the process and tell them that we filled the position. And this can be, as you see, a very lengthy process. So it can take sometimes 3 weeks is one of the quicker ones I've done recently. 3 months from start to finish is not unusual. Because if we need to get the art director or the creative director or the producer or several of them on board on a hire, it can sometimes take time to find a simple thing like a slot in the calendar where they can sit down in the same room and discuss candidates, because they are super busy people. So it can take a lot of time. So take note of that. And that's what I meant by be patient. But if you are not sure what's happening, never hesitate to get back to the recruiter, because we're glad to answer any questions. We would be happy to do that, because we are often, unfortunately, so busy that we can't see if someone is getting nervous about something. But if anyone comes to us and say, "Oh, I'm a little bit unsure what's happening here. I haven't heard from you in 2 or 3 weeks. What's going on?" We'd be happy to explain where we are in the process, and it's not to your disadvantage if you do so. As long as you don't pester us every second day, but that's another thing. Okay. So after you've done the application and you've received some notification and you're called to an interview, so the interview process, the dreaded interview. First thing, actually, show up on time. And with time, I mean on time and not 30 minutes early, because 30 minutes early can also be difficult to handle. So 5 minutes before, perfect, lovely. Bring notes if you have any since before. It's fine if you don't. Be honest during the interview, which is obviously important. Come prepared. Make sure that you've read up again on the ad, and you bring any new work samples that you want to show that we might have seen or might have not seen. And sit down before, prepare mentally by thinking through how would you like to present yourself? What are the things about me that I think they must know? And think through what you would like to present and see if you can find opportunities for that. All good? So after the interview, it never hurts to follow up. Just a quick email, say, thank you for the interview, very nice to meet you. It shows interest, but it shouldn't be much more complicated than that. Super nice thing. Again, be patient. As I said, if you're the first interviewed candidate and we're going to have to interview 10 candidates, the interview process can easily be 3 weeks. So sometimes it does take time. And keep the employers updated. If things change, if you receive an offer from another studio, or if you accept an offer from another studio, update us. Let us know that you found something else or you moved into studies or whatever. Just a short email to keep us updated. It helps a lot. Moving on. Final things, actually. You should also prepare by having other tools available. LinkedIn is a really good thing, actually, because it simplifies the process of recommendations sometimes, and also forwarding profiles to other people within the organization. And it's a living document, so you can constantly update it in case your situation changes. I try to connect with almost everyone on LinkedIn that I've been in direct communication with, because you keep them on file through that. YouTube accounts, really good, free, and you can post reels or whatever on it. Twitter, it's not an absolute necessity, but it can be a fun thing to have. And another tool that you can use is agencies. But agencies are, I'm sure hoping no agencies in the room, they can be a little bit difficult because they, if they present you as a candidate to us first, we're not allowed to hire you through any other, because we have an agreement with the agencies. We're not allowed to hire you through any other channel. So direct applications are always the best, actually. Agencies, we're hesitant towards them because they have a fee, but sometimes they do have a purpose, and it's that they can have a reach that you do not have. So as soon as you're looking into expanding your reach, that's when they should come into place. But if you can contact us directly and you know which studios you are interested in, you should always directly apply to them. So if you want to find out more information about Massive, you can use these things. We have a web page, we have a career Twitter, and we have a Facebook page, which is actually very updated. We do frequent updates with studio status and all sorts of things. And the big thing is questions, because I imagine you have lots and lots of them. We'll start with you over there. How many, you asked how many people per year we hire through? Who are graduates? Yes, the first question. I'm not surprised by this question. Quite a lot, actually. Let's see. Last year, we grew by 65 people, and I think about 30% were graduates, direct from school. Any more questions? Yes, you would. How often is it okay to call back to the company or get in touch again? You can call as often as you feel comfortable doing, actually. No, that's the correct answer, because if you are not sure where you are in the process, it's a problem for us as well. So don't hesitate about that. Every day is a bit too much, yeah. But I sure hope that we're not sending you that kind of signal that you have to call us every day to make sure that we haven't dropped the ball or something. Any more questions? Oh, over there. Yep. Okay, so you're referring to my request of candidates being honest during interviews, and if I've had experience of people lying. Yes. I don't like to give out details in public about interviews, but they have lied about merits, titles, and scope of responsibility. I haven't actually encountered any. Yes, of course, yeah. Bachelor's degrees. When they come to an interview stage, they let know that they haven't actually succeeded in their bachelor, but they have a couple of courses left or something like that. Well, it's not an immediate disqualifier, but of course it shines a negative light on them. So it's not a good thing. Yes, you over there. Okay. You're asking about the importance of degrees and how does that stand in relation to actual skill set and knowledge. The skill set and knowledge is by far more important. A bachelor's degree is usually a means of acquiring knowledge, or that's the point of it really. But and if that can shine through the skill set, it's actually the skill set that we're going to judge in applications. So the degree is basically useless if you haven't made good use of your student or your time as a student. You over there? Yeah. Yes. It's not a deal breaker because for us it's more important with talent, and sometimes if people have disabilities or personal circumstances that mean that they cannot work full time, if they can still provide the company and the organization with strengthening the skill set, they can still contribute. So no, it doesn't have to be a deal breaker. You're asking if it also provides a disadvantage when applying. I think it's, to put it simple, it's easier if we're looking for several people within a field to fit that type of profile into an organization. If we're looking for one specific individual to fill one specific gap, and we know that it must be a full-time position, then of course it's disadvantages. We can start with you over there. Yeah. Okay. The question was if previous leadership experience can be demeriting when we're trying to fill a position that is essentially a junior position. Not necessarily. I can't really think of a situation where it has been a strong enough problem to actually make us not go with that candidate if they have the right portfolio, skill set, and makes a good interview. It's always the candidate, and if the candidate is right and the person is ready to take a step down, if you so will, then it's perfectly fine. And sometimes it can be meriting even, because we might be in a situation where we're growing a team rapidly, and we start out with 2 artists, and we know that this team has to be 10 in the coming year and a half. Then it could be good to insert someone with previous leadership knowledge, because then we know that we have either a fallback plan or someone that can grow into that type of role as well. So it can be the other way around as well, meriting. But that's only my experience, and I've only been with larger studios. I don't know how a smaller studio would treat it. You were there? Yeah. Yeah. You're asking how many pieces you should provide in a portfolio when submitting it. And I'm assuming you're talking about art here. I think you should include the ones that you're happy with. So 3 to 16, which is a big difference, but or a large scale to fit into. But it can be more than 16 as well. Of course, it can be hundreds if you're happy with all hundreds. But what I'm saying is, it's not important to have a well-filled portfolio. It's important to have a portfolio that clearly represents your current skill level and or includes previous work that tells a story of how you progressed as an artist. But more often, it's actually quite frequent that we see portfolios where we ask ourselves, why have they included this into the portfolio? Because it doesn't relate to any of the other things in the portfolio. And it's clearly something that's 5 or 6 years old, and it doesn't have any relation to the other things. Did that answer your question? Good. You were here.
What would you say is the difference between a good and a bad programmer portfolio?
You are asking for the difference between a good and a bad programmer portfolio. A bad programmer portfolio is a programmer portfolio that is completely empty, because it happens sometimes that programmers don't have any portfolio at all, and sometimes they are either too cautious with spreading source code, or they just simply haven't set up anything because they're unsure on how to present it. A good programmer portfolio I've seen it a few times, but it's a lot of work, so it's understandable that not everyone goes to this length. I've seen portfolios where you've had a video of the application or the game running, the downloadable executable to try it out yourself, as well as a link to the source code and a short text explaining the motivation to this specific project. The programmer, I was trying to learn this and this technique, and therefore I did this little thing here, which might look just like a gimmick, but the purpose was this. I was trying to create a tool for creating height maps or whatever. And it might not look like much to you as a programmer, but it might be really useful for us as a total project. Okay, did that answer your question? Good. And you? You're asking, your question is, how much does personality play in compared to skill sets and merits? Personality is super important because we're hiring a team member. So we're hiring someone to insert into a team that we hopefully feel is a functioning team. So actually hiring can sometimes be a bit of a risk for that simple matter. So we are looking a lot at personality when hiring. But of course, the candidate must also be able to deliver up to the quality, because otherwise we would just hire a morale booster, which is obviously difficult because after a while it creates a tough spot for that candidate. Did I answer your question? Good. You over there? You ask if we encourage candidates to ask questions themselves during the interview. Yes, we do. For us, it's at least at the end, but sometimes also partway through the interview. If we present a project, for example, there might be follow-up questions after that presentation. But yes, we do, and we like it. We like it when candidates have questions about us. Any more questions here? All the way, over there, yes. You're asking if we're only interested in finished pieces and if there is a place for work in progress. There is a place for work in progress. Yeah. Sketches and such can sometimes be very important to see. It's actually quite important sometimes to see the process, the artistic process, when assessing an artist. So yes, I think so. But sometimes I've seen a few artist portfolios, and this is also very difficult. It's that they post the finished piece, and if you follow a link, they will show the process on how they reach that finished piece. But a portfolio that only consists of halfway things is not a good portfolio. So there needs to be a balance. Okay. Any more questions? We have more. Huh? You again? That's a tough question. You're asking how long it takes for a new candidate or a new hire to integrate into the team. Usually it can take up to the full probation period, which is 6 months in our case. But usually you have an idea after the first 3 months if they have integrated. One more question. Excuse me, I didn't catch the bit at the end. You're asking about relocation things. Okay. So regarding the relocation question, when people relocate from other cities or other countries, we actually at Massive we have 22 apartments that we have one person full time to handle relocation issues, everything from visa processes. But the apartments, the rent needs to be paid by the candidate, of course, because otherwise it would be a salary. So yeah, we help with that. And the other part was how do we assess the previous merits and the personal letter. Yeah. I see, I see. You're asking if we expect you to have all the previous experiences described in the personal letter as well. Only if so, if you have a lot of previous experience, try only to describe the ones that are clearly relevant for the position. Otherwise, it can be a little bit lengthy, perhaps, because the cover letter is really just an introduction, a first window into the candidate, and usually we want we ask for a really long background description as a first question for the interview, and where we just go through the full resume, which should contain all the previous experiences that are relevant, and we can ask for other things as well if there's anything that you feel should be in there that isn't. So the combination of the resume, which should be fact-based, and the cover letter should be a good starting point for you, but it doesn't necessarily have to be everything. I'm not sure if it answers your questions, but good. Over there. Yep. You're asking if the student project is its own merit in the resume. I don't think it is, honestly. I think it's part of the portfolio. So it should be a part of the portfolio. There's no reason to try to boost your resume by adding experiences and portraying them as something that they're not. I think you do phenomenal student projects here, but they are student projects and they're part of your education, so they go under your education. But they should, of course, be in the portfolio. In the personal letter, you're free to mention them if they have been good experiences and if you have any sort of learning that you've gotten from them. So did that answer your question? Good. You're asking if you should just include screenshots or the whole game. In the portfolio, I think screenshots will help us 90% of the way, actually. But having the full game downloadable is very good, especially if you're applying for a game design position, because it's extremely difficult to assess a designer out of just descriptions of areas of responsibility without seeing how the implementation has actually come through in the end. Did that answer? Follow up. Okay. You're asking about animation, and it's very specific to 2D animation. I haven't actually hired 2D animators, but I think a sprite sheet would be a good thing, but or animated GIFs, or just a YouTube clip to portray it. That should do fine, I think. Okay, how are we for time? I don't have a watch, so 15 minutes. Any final questions? We have more over there. No, but it's fine. I like it. So, yep. You're asking if a signed document as part of the portfolio. I didn't. Okay, as a reference. I think it's more common. You're asking about the letters of recommendation and references. A design document. Sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Design documents are great. So yes, include them. They are not under NDA because we sometimes send them out before we have people sign NDAs, so they are not under NDA. Obviously, or maybe it isn't so obvious, so it will lead to a good question. The question was if art tests are under NDA. It would be more than frowned upon if you post the specific art test, the description of the art test on your portfolio, because it will give away the art test to all potential applicants that we have so that they can better prepare, because time is often part of the test. So it would be disadvantageous for you as a candidate if you did that. However, the actual art file and just not relating to it as Massive or whatever, and just having the art file and saying, hey, I did this. If you check with us, we'd appreciate it, but most of the time it's going to be fine. Unless it's under NDA, but then we will be clear in communicating that to you as a candidate, of course. You over there? Having art tests on your portfolio is... Okay, so your question is if you apply to several different companies and you do several art tests and you add them to your portfolio, is that a bad thing? I can't see why it would be. Yeah, yeah. That's true, of course, but I don't see it being a specific problem per se. However, if you break NDAs or similar things, that's problematic, of course. So you should always be careful about that. But if you make an art test that you're really proud of, you should show it off just like any other art piece. Because what Kaifa is getting to is, of course, important that it tells us that you didn't get the job at the other studio, but we don't know their interview process. We don't know their other candidates. We don't know why you didn't get the job. So it's not that demeriting for that reason, because there could be 100 reasons why you didn't get a job. Maybe they just canceled the recruitment. So that's it's tricky. Did that answer your question? Good. No, it's not competition. It's your competing candidates. That's the problem. So imagine that the scenario is this, that we send an art test and say you have until Thursday to complete this, and we send it to you on Monday morning. And then on Friday you post it for the world to see and say, I got this description of an art test from Massive, and this is the result. And you give away all the concepts and the description of the task itself. Then all potential candidates that are applying for Massive can prepare themselves months in advance by doing the perfect art prop according to our description. And then time is no longer one of the factors that we can use when assessing the candidate. Because sometimes we ask for whatever you've done on Thursday, we want to see it. And now we don't do this, but theoretically you can have a situation where we sort of give a situation where we know it's a difficult thing to complete it in time, and we want to see how people prioritize and how they approach the task. But we don't do that, and I would not really like to do it like that, but theoretically that can happen with other studios. But time is important, and then you would effectively ruin the art test for us, and we would need to have to come up with a new art test. And with that type of action, you're obviously not becoming popular with us. If you give away the full test, that is. But asking for permission to just give a screenshot and not tell what it's from and why you made it, that's fine. As long as you just talk to us.
What do you usually tell people to do in an art test? What is an art test?
Ooh, that's a difficult. Your question is, what is an art test? It can be a specific type of prop, a specific texture, a concept art for a specified object. It can be a description of an environment. It can be a photo reference. It can be tons and tons of things. And they often change during the course of the project and for the specific positions. So it can be a full model, a texture, a piece of concept art. Very varying. So it's difficult to say this is what it's always going to be. Yeah. One or two pieces, usually. Over there. Yeah. Then you apply as a technical artist, and we like technical artists. So the question was how we view artists with coding skills. I think it's advantageous, because understanding the other disciplines within the studio is important, especially in the long run, for communication, and to also better collaborate with the other disciplines and prepare your assets for them when needed. Your question is, if you're applying as a modeler, but the design is yours and you haven't used any other concept artist's design, and should you mention that? Yes, you should. Design by me and mesh, textures, whatever, also. It is good to mention it. You over there. Oh, a technical artist. Now Kaifa is going to listen extra carefully. A technical artist is often the bridge between programmers and the artists and the art pipeline. So they help with the pipeline for asset integration. They assist with tool sets and creation of tool sets. They assist with performance issues in the engine. They assist with engine development to some degree. And they also help solve complex problems that sometimes arises. It can be all sorts of weird stuff that happens. But that's the really quick answer. But they can also do everything from tools inside Maya or bridges between two programs and into the engine and all sorts of things. But also say that we as a production, we need something that we're unsure if the engine can handle. They help with assessing what needs to be done to be able to achieve the goal. That can be everything from special effects to stuff like shaders or particle systems or whatever. Yes. Yep. Your question is when submitting an open application, how often is it appropriate to update it? It is very difficult because it's dependent on the studios, but for me, I think once or twice per year. And also, obviously, if you see the position that you're looking to get into open up with a studio, then it's appropriate, obviously. Okay, I'm going to check with Kaifa. Was that a good answer? Good. Thanks. So, any final questions? Oh, all the way in the back and one there. Okay, so the two of you, and then I think I'm done. So we start with you in the back. An interesting question. A sound portfolio. You're asking how to create a good sound portfolio. You should have a clip of the sound, but you should also describe the process on how you created the sound, and also, if possible, describe the goal or what you were trying to portray, because it say that you're creating a reload sound, for example. It is good to know what type of weapon it is instead of just, this is a reload sound. Because if you have an idea of how the weapon was meant to look, you can often see if you've related to that or how you related to that. And when it comes to pieces of music, same thing there really. The process and what kind of mood you were aiming for and what was the objective of that sound piece, but also the clip itself. Did that answer your question? Good. And we had one over here, the final question. You're asking about tests for programmers and if we have similar tests for programmers in general. We have at Massive, and we had at Starbreeze as well, specific tests for various kinds of positions. So they differ between the positions. There are tests, and they are different in kind as well. The type of task that you're asked to fix. Okay. I think that's it. Thanks a lot for listening.